All right. Hey, thank you all for coming out. My name is Steven Stotts. I am also known as Old Man Liver. I am old, and my liver is older than me, believe you me. I have my own whiskey called Old Man Liver American Whiskey and hot sauce and all this other crap. I also own the Pioneer Saloon with this amazing person, Stephanie Richter, also known as Mama Tess.
Mama Tess.
So thank you guys for coming out. We've never done a paranormal festival before, so appreciate y'all taking the lead and getting it started. It always takes us one.
Thank you for being our guinea pigs.
Yeah, one time, and then every year after it's always packed when we start something new. But the paranormal aspect of the saloon has been a huge part of the Pioneer Saloon's history for 112 years. We are the oldest bar in all of Southern Nevada. So we have a lot of history. So it makes sense that our little bar in the desert is going to be the one that's haunted, because we do have confirmed murders here, and we'll talk about all that fun stuff. And I want you to be open to asking any questions about the saloon, whether it's haunted history or other history or anything else. This is your chance to get the people that know it the best and are here all the time. You want to switch me out?
No, there's a mic set up here.
Oh,
for
okay.
anybody
So
who
that's
wants
our
to come up and
Q&A
ask
mic.
questions.
So if you have any questions, and I'll try to cover a bunch of stuff, including stuff that is not widely known in the press, so that you get some inside scoop here. I'll tell you, the Pioneer Saloon has been a part of Goodscreams since Goodscreams was started. This little town here has 200 people. But just so you know, Goodscreams was actually as big as Las Vegas back in the early 1900s. Both of them had about 800 to 1,000 people. Now the Vegas Valley has 3 million, and we have 200. So we've gone, and that includes all our chickens and pigs and stuff we all own out here. So that's included in the population count. We do live in Goodscreams. We have a house down the street. It's actually more haunted than the Pioneer Saloon. It's older. It's from 1910. Pioneer Saloon was founded in 1913. So, and only in Goodscreams would you buy a house that comes with a mine shaft. So that was the weirdest thing, because we're walking the property and we're like, what's this, these panels over this big thing? And we start moving it away, and then when you look into it, it was like a missile silo, and we're like, what the hell is that? And it's one of those things where you drop a rock down in the mine shaft, and you have to wait to hear it hit, and you're like, what is going on? And so we were a mining town back in the day. We did 17 different minerals, gold and silver, lead and zinc, you name it. We mined it all. The only thing we still mine to this day is a certain type of red rock that's mined over here near Mount Potosi. And that particular rock people use for like countertops and things like that.
And the mines in this area were active all the way up until the 60s, which is quite interesting. So you can still see the remnants of them up there on the hill of where a lot of it was brought down. So there was quite a lot still going on here from a mining perspective for all the way up until the 1960s.
Those concrete slabs going up the hill, that's all from
the Yellow Pine Mine.
The Yellow Pine Mine. So we had a rail car coming all the way from Las Vegas. You can actually see the rail line if you go walking around. Now, the kicker with Goodscreams, just so y'all know, if you walk around, just stay on the main streets, because even historic buildings that you see are all privately owned. It's almost all privately owned property. But no one thinks to look across the street on the other side when they come out here. So I invite you to actually check the other side of Spring Street, because you can still see the remnants of the buildings that used to be here. There's still concrete slabs. There are still stone buildings from the 1800s. And so you're like literally looking at history.
If you were to go across the street, the little stone building that's over there is one of the original stores, general stores that was here. And in fact, in the museum that's up here in town, it's the old post office, is one of the original ledgers from, I think, around 1886, is as far back as it's dated. So the building itself is still standing, which is quite amazing, but it is on private property, so you have to kind of look at it from the road. But it's pretty cool little piece of history up there.
Yeah, so Goodscreams is a fascinating town. Now we're an unincorporated part of Clark County. So we don't actually have a mayor or a city council or anything like that. Now I know we pay like $20,000 a month to in taxes to the county.
It doesn't come to the town.
It doesn't go anywhere except for to someone's pockets.
It's based
and not
on the
ours.
population.
Now you might go, why would you have a restaurants, for the record, are the worst investments you can possibly make.
We don't recommend it.
Especially restaurants out in the middle of nowhere in towns of 200 people. So nobody just stumbles on the Pioneer Saloon. You have to know what's out here, and you have to come out here on purpose. So unfortunately, we don't have that location marketing thing. You have to know, we have to draw people out, and we got history,
right, and spooky, which you guys will hopefully get to experience tonight.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things is when the previous owners about 4 years ago transitioned the property to us. During that time, we were initiated into the Asshole Association. Now, this is an association that has existed out here since the 80s, and it actually started as a charity thing. Even though you've probably seen the T-shirts, it's not too politically correct. We got the skeleton, pointing giving you the finger and all that stuff. But it started in the 1980s when people were going around town trying to collect toys for like a Toys for Tots drive. And somebody said, oh, don't bother going and asking the folks at the Pioneer Saloon. They're a bunch of assholes. That got back to the saloon and the managers and the regulars, and they said, screw it, we're starting our own asshole association. We're going to raise money and kids and toys and do our own thing. And to this day, it still exists. So people will sign up for the Asshole Association. You have to take an oath to be a certified asshole. It's $100 lifetime membership, but that $100 does go to the town. It goes to local veterans groups. It goes to Goodscreams, volunteer fire department, the elementary school, things that aren't really as well funded as they should be. So it's actually kind of a cool thing. But the previous owners inducted us into the Asshole Association.
He's now the emperor.
I declared myself emperor because that's what assholes do.
You should be.
Right? So, and then one thing they passed along, and I can't verify if this is true or not, but there used to be a hotel out here called the Fail Hotel. And obviously, like we're talking about, this main street was lined with businesses back in the day. We're the only business that hasn't burned down or weather hasn't taken it. So we've
almost done it.
We've almost done it several times. But thank God it hasn't happened yet, because you can't rebuild the Pioneer Saloon. That's the thing. So, but the one thing that the previous owners mentioned to me, that
this is an owner secret.
An owner secret that I'm literally probably only telling for the first time, is they swear that the previous owner that they got the saloon from admitted to them when he had cancer, he came around and said, I'm gonna die, it's gonna happen, but I want you to know that I threw a Molotov cocktail at the Fail Hotel when I learned they were going to open a competing bar.
1963.
Who knows if that's true or not? I am also on the Goodscreams Historical Society, and the word through there is that somebody was trying to do a campfire in their hotel room, which is, knowing people out here, that could have very well happened. So either way, it's an interesting story of why the hotel burned down. Yeah. So another thing people ask me about is our history with Clark Gable, because we have a whole history of where Clark Gable and Carol Lombard are involved. And a lot of the paranormal groups that come out, they'll ask me, does Carol Lombard haunt the Pioneer Saloon?
Real quick, who in the audience is familiar with Carol Lombard and Clark Gable? Okay, so that's helpful.
Good amount.
That's helpful. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
It's good to know, because without the context, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we should probably tell the story of the.
Yeah. So that's the kicker: is Carol Lombard and Clark Gable were known to frequent rural bars around the Las Vegas area. So it is likely they came here well before she passed away in a plane crash right behind us over here in Potosi Mountain. Now, people ask me, does Carol Lombard haunt the Pioneer Saloon? And I tell them no.
It's very unlikely.
It is very unlikely. She did not die here. Sadly, she died in a plane crash over here in Potosi Mountain right as we entered World War II. Now, granted, she was out there trying to actually collect money for war bonds because we needed to collect money for the war effort. And strangely enough, around that time, we were worried about an attack from the Japanese coming from the Pacific. So we had a lot of our beacon lights that are normally turned on. We had those turned off. So that might have contributed to pilot error when she was traveling, and she, along with 22 other military personnel, perished in a plane crash right here over here in Mount Potosi. And that probably contributed to the pilot error where they ran right into the mountain. Now, unfortunately, nobody survived the plane crash. In fact, a lot of it is still up there. We do have 2 pieces of the plane crash here. One is on the dining room wall, which you can check out when you go in there next time. Another is a molten piece of the plane that's sitting on the potbelly stove in the saloon that we actually use to heat the saloon in the winter. Now, you might notice you're probably getting chilly already. Why? Because we're at 3,700 feet elevation. You don't realize when you're coming up the hill from Jean that you're coming up an extra 1,700 feet. So we are generally up to 10 degrees cooler than Las Vegas. So that's a thing people don't know. They'll come out here in the winter and they're like, and it'll be snowing, and they're like, what the hell? And we sell a lot of sweatshirts on those days because they hear the Mojave Desert's hot and they're not expecting snow. But we have a different weather pattern up here.
So back to the Carol Lombard story real quick. I think it's probably good for those in the audience that are not as familiar with her story. So as Stephen mentioned, she was on her way back from a war bonds tour, and her plane was never originally supposed to land in Las Vegas. She was supposed to head straight on to LA. But on top of that, she was never even supposed to take a plane. Her and her mother and her business manager were supposed to take a train ride. She wanted to get back faster, and so they flipped a coin, and Carol won, and that's how they ended up on that plane. They did make a stopover in Albuquerque before they ended up in Las Vegas. And during that time, most of the civilian passengers on that plane deplaned, and 15 soldiers got on board. There's also some speculation about part of the pilot error or the airplane crash that might have contributed to it was the weight of the plane and the fact that she had more luggage on there than they might have accounted for. There's also, as Stephen mentioned, the speculation around the beacons being off on the top of the mountains. But in addition to that, they were never supposed to land in Vegas. They only did that to refuel and then to head on to LA. When the plane crashed, the crash site is so difficult to get to. The only reason why anyone knew that it happened was another pilot happened to see the flames and reported it. And secondly, they finally heard when the plane never landed in LA. And so those were 2 of the biggest reasons. Of all of the search and rescue teams that went up to that particular crash site, one of them did originate from here in Goodscreams. They had to go up on donkeys and burros, which there's actually quite an amazing photograph hanging on the wall in the dining room. So when you guys, if you want to join us for the tour later, you can go in there and check out some of that, as well as the piece of the plane that happens to sit up there. Now, the folklore that has been passed around decade after decade is that Clark Gable actually sat, I'm not sure where we're getting the feedback from, but actually sat at the bar and waited for word of Carol's, whether or not she survived the plane crash. Unfortunately, there's too much newspaper articles and too many stories that can disprove that he sat here for that reason. We do believe and we do know that he was in the town of Goodscreams, and we're very confident that he did visit the saloon at one point, but he was not sitting there for the 3 days. I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubble, but that's a little piece of history and information where we can share with you what the folklore is versus what we know is to be reality. There's some other really fun stories that Stephen can tell you about later when we go on the tour about where we think some of those divots might have come from. And those might have been a little bit more involved around the biker days of when this was a fairly well-known biker bar.
Yeah, the folklore goes that he sat there for 3 days and his cigarettes and cigars were burning the bar that we still have in the saloon as he would fall asleep trying to stay awake. And we don't believe that to be the case. We have enough eyewitnesses that are still alive to this day that saw Clark Gable come to town. In fact, he used one of my friend's aunt's telephones because there were only his aunt and the Hotel Fail had telephones back at that time. So they went in to use that, but generally he was here in Goodsprings and sat in his car because he did not want to face other people while he grieved. So that's one of those things, folklore, fiction, we want to get down and dirty tonight with what's real and not real, because there's so much real stuff out here that there's no reason to even make up stories, because we have so much stuff.
Plenty.
Yeah, plenty that actually happens. And so we're going to cover some of that as well.
Yep.
Now, one of the other big things people ask about, they go, did somebody really die in a poker game in the Pioneer Saloon in 1915? That is factually
100% true.
100% true. There were 3 guys playing poker, and back in the day, at this time, you could get away with murder if you were caught cheating and it was legit, and I'll tell you how it happened. So a guy named Paul Koski is this out-of-work belligerent miner who had been drunk for a few days, kind of think Val Kilmer's character, in Tombstone.
He was also a former boxer.
Yeah, he was a big pugilist, a big boxer guy, and he actually tried to pull a card from the bottom of the deck. Now, the dealer, Joe Armstrong, saw him do it, and he called him on it, and that pissed him off. So he got up and was like, you're saying I'm cheating? And he kind of lunged at him. Then Joe Armstrong backed up, grabbed his pistol, and actually took a shot, and he held up his arm and he shot him through his hand. That didn't stop him. So Paul Koski kept going at him. He shot him again, and he ended up dead on the floor of the Pioneer Saloon and laid there for 10 hours because it was still horse and buggy day back in that day. So it took 10 hours for the coroner to come from Las Vegas to pick up the body. So there was a dead body in the saloon laying there for 10 hours. It is a confirmed factual event. We have all the coroner's reports, the county records. We've got the newspaper headlines. We know for a fact that happened. We actually have the table still here where it happened. So that is covered by a lot of press and a lot of paranormal and haunting stuff. That did, in fact, happen.
And an interesting fact about that particular story is, so when the coroner came, they held an impromptu trial to determine whether or not Joe Armstrong was actually guilty of murder or whether or not he was to be acquitted. Joe Armstrong was acquitted. Paul Koski's brother, who lived in Idaho at the time, was very frustrated and very angry and did not feel like his brother had received the justice that he should have received. So he petitioned the governor of Nevada to reopen his brother's case. So the Nevada marshals went back out, hunted Joe Armstrong down, brought him back to Vegas to stand trial a second time. He was also acquitted a second time of murder, and that it was considered a justifiable homicide because he was cheating at cards. And the other reason why you could get away with it is if somebody stole your horse.
That's right. If you were cheating at cards or stealing horses, those were the one things you could not get away with in the old Wild West. So in this case, they also looked at each person's reputations. And so back in the day, they would take that into consideration. Paul Koski did not have nearly as good of reputation as Joe Armstrong, and they acquitted Joe Armstrong of murder, and they looked at it as a self-defense case. It was such a problematic case that even it caused problems between states. But ultimately, Joe Armstrong got off from the murder of Paul Koski. But that did happen. Now, the 3 bullet holes that are in the wall that people talk about as well, no one knows for sure where that came from. We don't know. We haven't met anyone of our several years of owning the Pioneer Saloon that can tell us they saw the bullet holes happen. And there's several stories of whether it was during the Paul Koski incident or whether a previous owner just went and shot up, or someone was shooting someone running away that was cheated on her wife. There's multiple stories, but they're all interesting. And the bottom line is there's actually multiple bullet holes throughout the Pioneer Saloon. So those are just ones that haven't been covered up, and we'll show them to you if you haven't seen them yet on the tour. But it's very fascinating stuff because all this stuff really happened. And another interesting thing that a lot of people talk about, oh, you're like the Wild West out there in Goodsprings, in the middle of nowhere. Truth is, we're part of Clark County, and we're regulated just like any other casino or restaurant on the Strip. We're all in the same boat. Now, one way we're more wild west than we used to be back in the early 1900s is Nevada is an open carry state. That means that businesses can decide whether you can bring a weapon into the saloon, into your particular business or not, in our case, a saloon. Now, back in the day, we used to, you'll see the signs, turn in your weapons to the proprietor. We no longer require that. So we are an open carry state, and we do allow people to wear guns as long as you're not causing trouble. And
but another fun thing on the tour is we'll show you where the gun hold is underneath the bar.
Yeah, so the bar actually,
there's a place people used to store them and hide them.
We'll talk about the bar because that's a famous thing in its own right, just from the 1800s, built by Brunswick, who actually is known for bowling alleys and those kind of things, so pool tables, that kind of stuff. But they built the bar in the 1800s, and it was originally in Rhyolite, and that was another mining town, but they completely dried up. So when they lost their mines, that's funny.
Lost their minds.
The bar got moved to here, where it's been ever since. So we'll show you that when we walk through the saloon on our tour for those who want to take it with us.
Should we talk about Ruby Barnes?
Let's talk about Ruby.
So Ruby Barnes is another story you'll hear a lot about here in town, or here at the saloon specifically. And she is rumored to be the woman crying in the bathroom. So if you've ever used the women's restroom here inside the bar, there's always a little bit of activity that has gone on in there, and I've personally experienced some of it. And of course, there's the story that has gone on for a number of years. And the story was that Ruby Barnes was a prostitute that lived here in the town, because there was a huge red light district. How many brothels were there? 5?
Three brothels.
3 brothels. So there were 3 brothels that were here in town, and that she was one of those individuals that was there, and that she may or may not have been strangled, and that her ghost haunts the Pioneer Saloon. Now, we have no actual evidence or proof that she has, and I have gone back to every census record that has ever been produced for the area of Goodsprings, and there were 5 Rubies that have lived here since the beginning of this particular town. If she did indeed live here and there was a story like that, most likely she was never captured on an actual census record. Most of Ladies of the Night did not generally participate in identifying what their occupation was. And then second to that, it's highly likely that she moved on before another census would have been taken, since they were done every 10 years. So that is one particular story.
Right, and Ruby Barnes themselves, people will post online a picture of her gravesite here at the Goodsprings Cemetery.
Same one.
That Ruby Barnes is not the ghost in our bathroom. Yes. She died in the 1980s, and I know people that knew her. Yes. So that the Ruby Barnes is false. Now, it could very well be a Ruby as a prostitute. Correct. That we don't know the last name, that haunts the women's bathroom. Has a significant amount of activity and reports for us. Another spot that has a lot of activity is here in the dining room, the far right back booth. We get more complaints about paranormal activity over there than any other spot in the dining room. So the women's bathroom in the saloon and the far right back booth in the dining room, if you want to check them out, those are where we get the most reports of paranormal activity.
People tell us that they smell cigarettes or cigar smoking, and clearly there's no one doing that inside, or there's a very, very strong scent of a perfume that none of us identify with in any way. So those are just a couple of those particular stories. Then there's another story of a little boy named Mikey. And whenever we've done investigations here at the saloon, we get a lot of activity from a spirit that we believe to be a child, and we believe that is Mikey. Mikey was... It's gone back and forth as to whether or not he was actually Ruby's son, but the story is that Mikey drowned on a well here on the property. There are other wells that have been abandoned, and they are no longer accessible, but we've not found any actual evidence that that is the case, other than just the investigations, and the information continued to be passed down from owner to owner. But we've had some very interesting photographs that people have taken where they've been standing in the dining room and a young man was standing in the doorway. The mother got home and found an image of a young man in the early 1900s standing over his shoulder. So we have some of those photographs that have been pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, in fact, if you ever are interested, go ahead and jump on YouTube and just put Pioneer Saloon ghosts or paranormal, and you'll see some of these pictures that we're talking about. Any apparitions, anything someone catches on camera, we try to post somewhere, mostly on YouTube. But there's some very fascinating things that I legitimately cannot explain. And for me, most of the paranormal activity goes on all day long, all night long. It's always there.
Most of the time during the day, we're just not paying attention.
Yeah, and those of you connected with it, I know you can feel it at any time. It's not just at night when you turn out the lights. But the cool thing when we do these paranormal tours, and for those of you on the VIP tour tonight with Jay Wasley of Ghost Adventures, you'll discover the benefit of turning out the lights and everyone leaving is that you can focus and you can hear things that you normally don't pay attention to. Yeah. So that's the difference. To me, stuff is happening all the time, and we've had an equal amount of stuff in the daytime as night.
Every single member of our staff has had some type of experience since they've been here. Stephen and I have had numerous. One of the really interesting ones that comes to mind when I think about when we first took over, two of them actually. One, it was really early in the morning and someone had left a swamp cooler on and it was ridiculously cold in the general store, and I came in to open it up. And at the time, we had gas-powered heaters that hung from the ceiling, and the only way to turn them on was with a pair of pliers. And I came in the morning, and I was the only one in there, and I opened the door, and I made the comment to myself as I rubbed my arms, and I said, "Oh, it's really chilly in here." And I walked around to open up the cash register, and about 5 minutes later, the heater turned on. I didn't do it. I don't know who did, but it certainly did not come on its own. So that was my very first experience here at the saloon. And then the next one that he and I had, we were sitting in bed. It was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning. The saloon had been closed up, and our phones started going off with our surveillance camera. And they were going off in order as if someone was walking through the saloon. So it would start at the front door, and it would go all the way to our back office, and it would come all the way back out again. And it just kept doing this in order. And we're both of us were watching this on our phones, and we're trying to see if we could find anything on the video. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it was like
something was setting
someone
off.
was walking through the saloon, and each camera was going off room by room, but no one was there, no sound. We went back and checked it out. There were no animals, nothing to set off these cameras that way. And then it was like it just walked back the way it came in. And we still can't explain that.
No,
to
have
this
no
day.
explanation for it.
Now, of course, most of the times, when I'm by myself late at night cleaning up, when something scares the crap out of me, inevitably, it's not when, I have 100 people here with me where I, can feel safe and all that. It's when I'm by myself. And one of the first ones for me was we were doing a movie. We do a lot of movies and TV shows and music videos here. And we were doing a movie with a vampire comedy with Jamie Kennedy and Matt Rife. Now, the funny thing is Matt Rife he wanted to hear ghost stories all in between scenes. That's what he wanted to hear about, was the ghost stories at the saloon. But of course, when everyone left and I'm the last the whole production team moved out, and I'm the last person in closing up the saloon by myself. And that's when I hear this creature, and the only way to describe it is it sounded like, kind of like they had to use multiple animal noises to make Chewbacca as a Wookiee sound. It was multiple animal noises all at once. And I saw something move out of the corner of my eye in the dining room, and then I heard this noise, and I'm like, holy crap, I think I just heard my first apparition here at the saloon. And of course, I'm completely by myself, so I'm like, I'll clean up tomorrow when I get back in the daylight, because that's not fun. But and then I had another case. We were doing a paranormal investigation, and it was with a local TV crew, and they experienced a lot of things, and we had a lot of neat things come over our equipment, and it was a good experience. But then I was exhausted. The crew left. I was cleaning up, and I hear this loud noise in the dining room, and I'm in the saloon area, and I'm like, what was it? It was like, I thought the production crew maybe backed their truck up and hit the wall or something. It was that loud.
It was pretty loud.
And I thought, or someone tumped over a desk, but I'm like, no one should be here. They all left. And I thought maybe they came back, and I'm looking around, and you can see on the surveillance camera, I'm looking around the property trying to find out what made that noise, and I could never figure it out. So the next day, which happened to by pure coincidence be Halloween Day, I went on the surveillance cameras to see what that noise was, if I could tell what it was. And you see this, not an orb, but it was like an orb with a tail. It wasn't just a glowing thing that could be a camera light or whatever. It was like something that came up to my head, goes over my head, and then off in a different direction. Now, I know what bugs look like on the surveillance. I know what dust looks like. Yeah, we watch a lot of the surveillance footage. That was not a bug or a piece of dust. I, to this day, can't explain it. I even put it in slow motion on YouTube to see if anybody else could debunk it, and no one to this day has ever been able to explain to me what that was. So that freaked me out, because I had video of it. I have a slow-mo. I can't figure it out. We had another time, too, where we did a paranormal investigation. We always sage ourselves after we do it, and just to cleanse ourselves and any negative energy and not take anything home with us. Now, we have a house here in Goodscreams, but also one in Las Vegas. And in this case, we were going home to Las Vegas. And after we did not sage ourselves after that paranormal experience, all of a sudden, stuff happens at our house where things are flying off the cabinets and keys are literally flying off our dressers. We're having our names called. We're hearing things in the middle of the night. Stuff
I
that
had a
never.
bowl move across the table that there was
Oh
no
yeah,
reason.
yeah. We stopped off at a
restaurant.
And my
bowl literally just moved.
Her bowl starts moving around the table, and it moved twice until I got my phone out, and I caught the third time, and we even show underneath the table. We show
it wasn't a condensation thing. It
wasn't
like
hot.
any of the scientific reasons that it bowl would have moved.
Yeah, to this day, I cannot explain why that happened, although she has a theory with her dad and some things like that, because he had recently passed away. But it was very unusual, and I put that online as well, and I cannot explain that. So I tell people, I'm like, whether you believe in ghosts or not, there are things here that have happened that defy explanation, no question. Even this whole property is like an energy vortex that you can't explain. We have IT people come out and go, hey, your Wi-Fi can't go from one pod 3 feet away to the next one, and normally that's how we bounce stuff. It doesn't work on this property. And I said, I know. It's a freaking shit show of an energy vortex that cannot be explained. And so even the top IT people come out and they're like, normally this works, but it doesn't work at your place. And I'm like, I know. It's just one of those things. There is something going on out here. Now, once again, it's part of what makes this property a magical place, but it cannot be explained. And some of these things that have happened to us can't be explained. And when I go home, when we partake too much in our own bar and we have to go to our house down the street, 4 minutes stumbling distance away, it's no solace, because at our house over there, we have we were actually told the person later after we bought it, we were told the person moved out because they couldn't handle the ghost activity anymore. And I'm like, thanks for telling us that now.
We've had way more activity personally at that house.
Yeah, like literally every night down the street, we'll have at 3 o'clock in the morning, we'll have someone making dinner in our kitchen. And I know we're the only people in the house, and it's so loud, and the plates are clanking. It's almost like someone's purposely trying to wake us up. Yeah. And I'm like, I know no one's out there, but I still have to get up and go check it out just to see. Of course, no one's ever out there, and it's freaky. And then sometimes the door is already open for me to go out, even though we didn't. It only opens from the inside. We have a master bedroom door that requires its own key, separate from the house, because we have a lot of people going in and out our house for various reasons down the street. We have renters. We use some of it for storage for the Pioneer Saloon and so forth. So we block off our own master bedroom now. But that bedroom, Like you cannot. We'll even close it at night, and we can go, okay, you can't. This thing isn't opening, and you can't open it from the outside. But then at 3 a.m, it's nicely waiting for me, opened up, and when I need to go check out what the noises are in the kitchen.
Now, probably the most unique experience we've had up at that house is one that I personally had. Stephen was asleep, and our bedroom is so dark you can't see your hand in front of your face, kind of thing. And I'm sure everyone here at some point in time is familiar with the smell of cigarette butts in a beer bottle or a beer can that's lasted there for like a couple of days and it's funky, right? You know what I'm talking about? That stench is what woke me up from a dead sleep. And I was like, what is that smell? And like, we don't smoke. Like, that's not a thing in my house. But that was so putrid, it woke me up. And I looked over and I could barely see Steven, and he was still sound asleep. And I felt someone standing at the foot of my bed. So very much like I used to do when I was 6, if I just closed my eyes really hard and you can't see me, I can't see you, was how I got through the night. And a couple of days later, my son and I were talking, and he had no idea that I had even had this experience, but he'd been working on the property for other reasons. And he says to me just randomly, "Hey, Mom, do you ever see that old cowboy that stands outside your bedroom window and smokes?" I went, "Oh. Well, but I've smelled him." I never actually saw him, but we believe that we know that there's some history because that particular property, before it became the house that it is today, was one of the original stick buildings here in town, as Stephen mentioned earlier. It's older than the saloon. It was built in 1910, and it's been added on over time. And so it was one of the main minor hubs that was here. So if you look back at old maps, you'll see that the train tracks that were supporting a lot of the mines went right through the center of our property. So it's pretty interesting. That's one thing that we want to keep exploring and understand a little bit more about the history of our particular property. Do we feel like some questions, or do we have more stories to tell?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and we recently, it was kind of exciting. We got voted number 7 most haunted destination by USA Today. And thank you. We're very excited that we got some acknowledgement for all the activity that's gone out here. And I'm not going to give Jay Wasley any flack from Ghost Adventures because they beat us out as number 1. But, so whatever. But, we were up against heavyweights like the Queen Mary and the Winchester. We were actually above the Winchester House and some pretty big things. And it's exciting to me that people are acknowledging our haunted history, because that's as big as all the other aspects of the saloon. The Pioneer Saloon is known for a lot of things to many different people. Some people it's a biker bar, some people it's a video game destination, some people it's an outdoor enthusiast spot, some people it's a family place because we're all ages. We're a historical landmark, so it's a lot of things to a lot of different people. But during October is when we really
Did
like
the sun
to
just come up?
We like to acknowledge, and we appreciate when people notice our paranormal background and they give us some credit, because we have so many amazing things, and so many people have so many stories, and even our own. She was talking about how the servers that have been here for years have their own stories, and you can ask them when they have time to tell you. But we had one of our servers who've been here for years and years, and one of our karaoke nights, innocently enough, she was watching a shadow person following one of our customers around. And it didn't go away. She couldn't break it. Other people couldn't see it. She's very connected to this. If you're connected, you pick up on these things and your hair goes. She was one of those, but it bothered her so much that she was shaking, and we had to drive her home that night because it was so dramatic to her that it was something that she wanted to cover. So all the
we could go on and on and on all night.
On and on. All our servers have different stories.
Yeah.
But we just want to see if you guys have any specific questions you want answered about anything, whether it's the haunted history.
They can come up to this microphone right here next to the camera and ask the questions.
Awesome.
That's
Thank
perfect.
you, Austin.
There is an on-off switch, so if you're going to come up and ask a question, just make sure you flip the switch up.
Cool. Yeah, so please feel free, and we'll answer anything about what it's like to live in Goodscreams, what it's like to own the saloon, any haunted stuff, any stories we haven't covered that you want to know, if it's fact or fiction or folklore. anything like that, we're happy to answer. So does anyone have any questions for us?
Yes, ma'am.
I know you. There we go. We got a couple people here.
So wait, turn it on. Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Perfect. I had a question. So I've been to the Stanley, and they have this like gallery of like the wall of. There you go. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. So I've been to the Stanley Hotel, and one thing that I noticed is that they have like a TV, and it rotates all the pictures of people that have submitted pictures with ghosts in them. Do you guys have anything like that here, or would you be interested? I feel like you guys should have something like that.
We do not have that currently. The only places we have that would be on our website or on our YouTube. But yeah, no, I think that would be a great display to have here, is for people to be able to sit in the dining room
I'll have
and
to check
watch
that
some of the
out.
cool things that
Yeah, maybe we'll do something that has some of the haunted
great idea.
pictures along with other historical pictures and stuff for
Okay.
people that.
That's a great idea.
Great idea.
Love that. Okay. Thank you.
The button on the top there, you go, just push it up.
That way. Hello. Okay.
Perfect.
So, wondering, personal stories. You're sitting here curating this history, and you're telling us that you're curating everyone's story. What is your story? What is your witnessing? What is your guiding? And what is your facilitating? Why did you do it personally, each of you? We could all put our money, our $20,000 somewhere else. There's plenty of people who have carried this story. Why did you two decide to put your money, your time, your energy, your effort, your passion into witnessing, guiding, and facilitating these experiences for this property?
The simplest answer to that question is the Pioneer chose us. So
Can I tell that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that is interesting that you bring that up, because when the Pioneer Saloon came up for sale, we had both been here before, and we knew we loved it. And we're like, oh my God. She's like, the Pioneer Saloon's up for sale. And I said, well, there's going to be large corporations, and this is the truth. There were large corporations. There were people that pooled their investment money together. There were a lot of groups trying to buy the Pioneer Saloon. And I said, you know what? I'll throw my name in the hat. We'll see what happens. I don't give it any chance of ever happening, but let's just give it a shot. And so we reached out, and then there was one night where it was like 9:30 at night, and I don't normally pick up my phone.
Especially for an unknown number.
For an unknown number. And, we had a couple cocktails, and we were winding down and just like calling it a night. And I was like, for some reason, I feel like I need to pick up this call. And it was the representative of the previous owner saying, we understand you're interested in purchasing the saloon. And we ended up talking to the guy for a while. And I still didn't think it was going to happen. But the problem was I started waking up at night. I was dreaming about
3
it.
in the morning.
Yeah, and I'd wake her up. I'm like,
Sitting
wait.
straight up in bed. Babe, we've got to have the saloon.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Okay.
But it has to happen.
I'm with ya.
And it was, and I'm not a big fate guy, but there is no doubt in my mind that the saloon chose us, because I can't explain it any other way. I started dreaming about it. I started saying I was fixated on it. And then all these other offers started falling through. Like there were like 7 other offers in front of us for way more money, way richer people that have resources and could do a lot. And all of them one by one started falling through, and it got to me. And then we know how to navigate that kind of crazy, the transition was not a normal business transaction. There's a lot of rumors on that. I will only admit we had a shot with the last previous owner.
If we
to
knew
lock in
half
the
of
deal.
what we know now, we probably wouldn't have done this.
Right. No, thank God we
That's
didn't.
why
know.
it chose us.
Yeah, it's a 112-year-old fixer-upper that you got to be really passionate about, or you'll freak out and lose your mind. And there's a lot of permitting, and we're in a lot of gray area. To this day, if you had a bar, you would never have an elementary school across the street. And that's what we have out here. So it's a lot of gray areas, a lot to navigate, and I feel like if it hadn't chose us, it would not have happened. So thank you for that question. That's
Great question.
very intuitive. And for me, it was important. I always loved ghost hunting as a kid. I grew up in Louisiana, And so New Orleans and Marie Laveau's and all that was my commonplace. But I always went to this one place called the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, and it was I would stay there as a high schooler, and we'd have all these crazy experiences. And I always felt, I never considered myself psychic, but I always felt connected with that extrasensory. I can feel that energy when I'm around it. And this was exactly the case with the Pioneer Saloon. The same energy. And my dad and I tried to buy the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana back in the 90s, and it didn't work out. But ultimately, I got my haunted house that I felt like needed to happen in my life. So thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? If not, we'll get ready to, anyone who wants to join us on a property tour, we'll go probably start first in the dining room and talk a little bit about some of the more significant things in there and stories that we haven't told, and the ability to answer more questions in a little bit more intimate way. So anyone who wants to join us on a property tour, we can gather right over here. Stephen and I will both lead that. And then when we come back, there's plenty of time until the next panel comes on for you to grab a bite to eat, another cocktail, or go check out any of the vendors that we have over there.
Yeah, we got Jay Wasley and a big group coming up that's going to be awesome on the next panel.
Tarot card reading and some other really cool stuff going on.
Thank you guys for coming out
thank
tonight.
you all for coming out. We appreciate you.
Thank you.